What's going on, guys? Today I've got Rotel's flagship 2-channel amplifier in for review, the RB1590. This is probably going to replace my current 2-channel amp that I use in my home theater, so let's go ahead and get this unboxed and get it hooked up. But before we get into it, if you've got a passion for audio and video gear like this Rotel amp and you want to keep up with what's new in the home theater space, then consider subscribing for new weekly content. Alright, let's get this thing hooked up. So this was a struggle getting it in my place. It's pretty heavy, weighing 84 pounds. Inside, we get documentation and screws for the rack mounts. And tucked inside the foam are the rack mounts. So kudos for Rotel for including those. We also get the power cord and remote trigger cable. Taking a look around the amp, the front has a nice black brushed aluminum finish. I've got the black version here, but it does come in silver as well. The power button is located top left with an engraved logo top middle. For ventilation, there are slits in the aluminum on the front fascia and tons of vents all around the stamped steel enclosure. Around back are dual binding posts for each channel for easy by wiring. There's inputs for either unbalanced RCA or balanced XLRs. To select which one you want to use, just toggle the switch. Below that are trigger options, which you can turn on or off. From a visual standpoint, this thing just looks like it means business. It stands over 9 inches tall, 17 inches deep, and 17 inches wide. I'm going to put this Blu-ray right here just for some scale. Yeah, it's big. Now, did I mention that the amp weighs 84 pounds? Some of that weight will come from the custom-made dual toroidal transformers that are found inside. You can kind of see it under the vents. It's a Class AB design with a dual monoblock setup rated at 350 watts per channel into 8 ohms, and that's with both channels driven. So this amp should have almost no problems driving any speaker. For testing, I used this in a 2-channel setup with my MartinLogan ESL X's, and my source component was the Cambridge Audio High-Res Network Streamer, which I'll have a review up soon for. Playing back some lossless files from my network, I used AudioQuest Mackenzie XLRs directly from the Cambridge into the Rotel. From the Rotel, I went with 4 pairs of AudioQuest Type 4 speaker cables for bi-wiring the MartinLogans. I also used the AudioQuest NRG power cables to power everything up. Now the Cambridge Audio CXN V2 can be used as a preamp, so instead of using a separate one, I just opted to use that one instead. Okay, now before somebody leaves the comment, no, I don't normally do quote-unquote audio demos here on YouTube, because if you're listening to this video on your AirPods or whatever you've got at home, and you think that they're going to sound anything like these electrostats or the amplifier, then I mean, your hearing is far superior than mine. But if you really need those demos, then there's plenty of videos here on YouTube with this same amplifier and probably the same speakers. With that being said, the main goal of me grabbing the Rotel was to replace the older RB1080 that I was using to drive my home theater speakers. But I figured I'd see how it stacked up against the Marantz PM10 that I was using for 2-channel listening. That piece cost $8,000, which is a little over twice the cost of the Rotel, which retails for $3,000. Now this isn't meant to be a versus video, but I needed to give you guys some context of what I was coming from. Was there a difference in sound quality using a more expensive amp? Some people might not think so, but at these differing price points, I definitely heard a difference. Sonically, the depth I got from the Marantz did seem to extend further behind the speakers. Not a huge amount, but the Rotel did seem a little more shallower. I did notice that the Rotel does have an extremely wide and tall soundstage, so instead of going deeper in my room, I felt everything went higher and wider. Imaging was also less centrally focused. When I say that, I mean that the phantom center channel speaker you get when you're sitting smack in the middle of both speakers was not quite as defined. Again, it might seem like I'm knocking the Rotel, but I mean there is a reason why the Marantz is over twice the cost. Now there's sure to be some folks that think an amplifier won't affect imaging or sound quality and that the speakers will do most of the work, and I totally get that. But since I've been using the same cables and source gear, I can without a doubt say there is definitely a difference between both amplifiers. It's like when people say that a receiver sounds no different than using a separate amp in your home theater. Anyways, back to what I was saying. Was there a solid center channel image? Absolutely there was. It's just the little things like the sound of Diana Krall opening her lips right before she sings a verse, or the strum of a guitar that was just missing that slight air of refinement. That's one of the qualities I really like about using electrostats. They can be uber revealing. If there's detail in that recording, then you're sure to hear it. If your amp or receiver is adding its own flavor to the sound, then you're sure to hear it. So I think the Rotel was less revealing on the top end than the Marantz was. I guess you would say that it was warmer, maybe a little sweeter sounding. As far as dynamics, yeah, wow. I mean, it's to be expected, right? This thing throws out 350 watts. If I threw in some rap, some Biggie, some Eminem, this thing hits some serious low-end bass. The guest that I had over that was demoing this with me thought that I had the subwoofer on. That's how low the bass can get. If you needed to get loud and reach reference peaks, then I'm certain your speakers are going to give up well before the Rotel will. As far as heat is concerned, if you're playing it loud and hard for a long period of time, I felt to the touch that it barely got warm. So the question is the Rotel worth the $3,000 asking price? Rotel is kind of in that place between the big box brands like Yamaha and Pioneer and the more esoteric brands that you hear from those pretentious audiophiles. No offense, audiophiles, just relaying what I've been told. The Rotel motto is balanced design. It's a balance between cost and performance. And I think Rotel struck a nice balance with this particular amplifier. It looks great, and it sounds even better. I know it may have been unfair to compare it to an amplifier costing twice as much, but honestly, there wasn't a tremendous gap between the two. You know, sound quality wise. It's not the most transparent amp I've ever heard, but I really wasn't expecting it to be. When I have it hooked up in my home theater, it really does grab the horrendous sound speakers that I have in there. So reaching theatrical levels is no problem, and its musical prowess is no slouch either. Is there a chance that this sounds even better with higher end components? Of course. Is there a chance you hear something totally different if you're in the same room as me? Sure it is. Audio is a very subjective thing. We all hear differently. That's why I've got to say that this is just what I hear, and these are just my impressions. Am I going to keep this amp in my rack? Yeah, it's going to be a permanent fixture in my home theater. So yes, to me, the Rotel is worth the asking price. So that's all I've got for now. Sound off below and let me know what you think about Rotel products. Do you like them or could you care less? Be sure to follow us on social media, and if you want exclusive content and giveaways, then check out our Patreon page. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you guys again in the next video.